Regarding all the point guards you've had the pleasure of coaching through the years, has Jordan Bone improved about as much as any of them that you've had?
He would be right there. I mean, you know, I remember when Coach Lanier went to watch some other players play, and he came back and he said, "Coach, I saw this kid that I think is going to be better than all of them." And he was talking about Jordan Bone. And from the time that we went to see him play and met him, I mean, there was no doubt that was the commitment that we wanted to make to him above all the other players at the time we were recruiting. And watching his growth over the last 2 years, and I don't think it's any great news that I've probably been as hard on him as any players I've ever coached. And to watch him now starting to connect the dots and do the things he's doing and starting to see the game, it's been really neat. And and I said it after the game at College Station that, I mean, he was tremendous talking in the huddle, which I haven't seen him do that ever. And yesterday I asked him, I said, "What got into you?" And he just said, "Coach, I'm learning." And the fact is that that pretty much, I think, defines what he's done since he's been here. He's always wanted to learn. He's never been against teaching. I'm not sure he's ever truly understood his talents the way that we see it. I don't think he's ever understood the game other than when we do things, you know, he does it because we say this is what's supposed to be done. I think he's now starting to understand why it's all happening and how it's all supposed to come together. But he deserves the good fortunes he's having because, again, he's worked hard and he's been through a lot, ups and downs, but he stayed with it. And he can get better. He's got to get better, and I think he knows that his best basketball is ahead of him. He'll continue to work the way he's worked up to this point.
You just talked about kind of how you were the recruiting process for Bone. Obviously, a lot's been made about the fact that y'all have won the way you have without any elite top 25, top 50 recruits. When you were recruiting early on, the juniors and seniors in your roster, what elements were you kind of looking for in terms of trying to find guys who'd be the right fits to kind of build this program the way you have?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt, you know, we're always looking for talented players. We are. And, you know, there's some programs around the country that could never get by with recruiting the class that we brought in as having the success they're having right now because their media and their fan base would be screaming that, hey, we're not recruiting the best players in the country. And I think it goes back again. I think it's a real compliment to our coaches and our players that they went out knowing that they've got a wealth of experience, and they look at some guys sometimes that have a higher rating, and they look at a guy that doesn't, and it's up to them now to who they're going to put me in front of. And what you love is when Rob Lanier came back from seeing Jordan Bone, there was no waver in his voice. You know, he said, "Hey, I'm telling you, this guy's got it," but he also knew that it was going to take time. I mean, he made it clear, and he didn't know how long it would take. And so I could tell you many, many stories about assistant coaches that have gone to see guys that weren't highly thought of but said that, hey, this guy's got a chance to be special, and he happened. And so I just think that I think I've gotten away from your question. I've actually forgot what you asked me, but
just the fits you were looking for.
But it was the same blueprint that we wanted. We knew we had to sign guys at almost at every position, but it went back to, again, what we thought would fit into the culture that we have here and that we were wanting to build. And that first year, if I remember, not our first year, but the second year when we brought in Jordan Bone, Bowden, and all those guys, we brought, I think, 5 guys on one visit and said to them, this is who we want to build this program with. And that day, I can't remember all those guys, but I just know this, that Jordan Bone was the first one that says, I want to be a part of this. And I can't remember the other guys that came in at the time. Huh? Yeah, and so was it 3 or 4? In Grant. And I can't remember if Folk had already been committed or not. Had he? I think so. But we said this is where we want to go. And before he left campus that day, he made the commitment, said, I want to be a part of this. And that's what you want. You want the point guard to be the guy that jumps first. And but we were at that point in time, we're trying to really fill a roster.
Coach, Admiral really seemed to break out of his offensive slump on Saturday. Was it a matter of just him settling back in and playing his game? Why do you think he struggled there for a couple games after starting the season off so well?
Well, again, I think it goes back throughout the season. You're going to have the ebbs and flows of a season, but I've said it many times, when he is focused days before, when he does his preparation, I mean, everybody wants to win come tip-off, and it's those guys that are willing to prepare themselves 2-3 days out mentally and go in and understand they've got a job to do, and if they take care of those details, and they're really not minor details, they're details that need to be taken care of. It'll help you play the game you kind of want to play, and there is no question when he's locked in days before, that's when he plays his best basketball.
Coach.
Rick, how do you build a roster that enjoys being around each other and likes being around each other? And in that realm, how does this group compare to others you've coached throughout your career?
Well, again, I don't think we've got a blueprint on that. I think that we have gotten collectively a group of guys together that are, one, good people, and that have decided to share in a common goal and try to be the best basketball team that we can be. And I've said many times before, you never really truly know what you get until you live with it every single day. And I don't want anybody to think we're perfect. We're not, because I mean, there's some days in practice, you guys watch it, I'm getting on guys and I'm not perfect either. I mean, I go back sometimes and like, I was too impatient, this, that, or whatever. But the fact is, we've all grown together, and I think that's the key. I think what goes on around our program outside of basketball has been important. You know, that we've tried to let these guys understand we're concerned about more than them as a basketball player. We want them to be the best they can be. We want them to have great hearts and have a love for this university and a love for people. We want them to respect and show humility and accept the responsibility that we've asked them to accept to be a part of this program. And the fact is, they have collectively bought into doing it. And again, we're not perfect, but they have grown, and we still have growth that we need to do.
Coach, Saturday, Eves played 5 minutes. Derek and John both had their minutes down. Was that a one-game thing to match up with Texas A&M, or are you sort of moving in a different direction with your combinations? You
know, Rob, to be quite honest with you, I didn't think any of them played very well Saturday, and we need them to. And that was probably as big a much of our yesterday when we were scrubbing out the film as anybody, that those guys need to understand those minutes are really, really valuable, and that we need those guys to come in and bring the energy and understand that what they do is equally as important, and we need that. But they didn't play because they weren't playing very well, and we need them to play well, and we need them to be, and how we tell if they're playing well, if they're doing the job that we ask them to do, and that's playing solid defense, bringing energy, and rebounding the ball. And if they give us something offensively, that's fine, but it's the other three things that we're looking for right from the time they step on the court. And probably the first one, if you, to be quite honest, is the energy. You know, we can't see those guys jogging down the floor with the ball's out in front where they're not working hard to get inside the ball line and not trying to block out or going to rebound or not staying in front of the basketball, turning the ball over, because we're not asking them to do a lot with that. But it's focus, and it's just a feel from us being around our guys every day, feeling whether or not we think they have it that particular day.
You had said on the teleconference that you kind of liked the way Missouri kind of adopted Konzo's personality. If you could, what is it about Missouri's, the way they play, that kind of reflects what you see as?
Well, I don't know if you ever saw Coach Martin play, but he's a good player, and he was a hard, tough-nosed guy, and kind of guy that you knew if you weren't ready to play, he was going to come after you. And I think his teams are like that they play hard. They, they're shooting the ball well. They make threes. I think they make 9 a game, but they're efficient with it. It's not like they're shooting 30 of them. I think they've got a couple guys that shoot a really good percentage, but obviously when they get the inside game going with Tillman, it really makes it more difficult. And he's a player that is a very talented player, can do some things and has done some things. And then, but again, again, Conzo is one of the finest people I've been around. I mean, I love it when first year I bumped into him. I think we were in Augusta, Georgia, and we were checking in at the hotel at the same time. And he said to me, "So you're going to love being at Tennessee." He said, "The people are great." He said, "You're going to love it." And I've just got, again, I've got a lot of respect for him because not so sure. Maybe I shouldn't say it if he was treated here the way he really should have been treated. And because I can tell you that there's not a finer person and a finer man. And I know one thing if my son ever wanted to play for him, that was a player I'd want him to play for him. He's that kind of person that you'd want your son to be around every day.
Rick, despite everything that's kind of gone on around him this year with inconsistency with other players and obviously the target on his back, Grant has become like a far more efficient player. Just what's been the cause of that, and just how has he been able to improve in that aspect of his game?
I didn't hear the part you said some kind of player. What was it?
He's become a far more efficient player.
Efficient? Well, he is. You know, he is, and again, I think he more and more understands how important it is to fight for position and get the ball, and he understands our offense as much as well as anybody that we've coached, and he understands what we're going to do at times. And I mean, again, he's not perfect. He strays a little bit from it sometimes. I think he knows defensively he's got to be more efficient there. But you know, he likes to pass the ball. He's like any player. You know, he's worked hard to expand his game. There's times he's a capable three-point shooter, and what I've told him, he just has to pick his spots when he does that. You know, because if I were playing against him, I'd like for him to stay out there. I wouldn't want him to come, you know, within 10, 12 feet of the 15 feet of the basket. I mean, he's very effective there, and he's got big hands and strong, and he's much stronger than I think people think when they play against him. They look at him, and they know he's strong, but I think he's probably even more stronger as a player than you might think when you see him. But he's worked, and the fact is, what I do know about Grant, he will continue to work because he is one that can look at himself, and he'll take coaching, and you can get on him, but it's not going to affect him because he's going to, again, he does want to be better, and he knows he has to be better.
Mike and Caleb?
Well, I didn't. Go ahead, Duffy.
To follow that up, is there a player comparison that for a guy his size, his build?
Well, obviously the guy that I've said in the past when we were recruiting him that came to mind was P.J. Tucker. But they're similar in some ways. One way, they were both fat when they got to college, you know, and they both had to work hard to lose weight. That's one similarity. And they both have big hands, strong, and they both aren't afraid to compete. They both were workers, are workers. I mean, I've watched PJ today play on TV, and I love watching him play. I love when I see the NBA highlights of LeBron or Kevin Durant. The guy always guarding those guys was PJ Tucker. And in college, you wouldn't have thought that, other than when we had to put him on somebody, when we had to really go after somebody, he would do that guy, because in college he was a scorer very much like Grant is, close to the basket. And but he kept continuing to work. You know, I've told Grant this. Grant's a better perimeter shooter right now than PJ was coming out of college. But PJ, at this point in time, was a better defensive player. And that's where Grant's got to continue to work to get better. And there's no doubt in my mind he will.
Rick, you've stuck with Lamonte in the starting lineup. What have you liked about that? And regarding Eve, what's kind of been the main struggle for him lately? It seemed like Texas A&M was one of his tougher games.
Well, you know, I think guys can go through slumps defensively as well as they can on the offensive end. I really do. I mean, everybody thinks slumps always happen offensively, but I think Eve right now is probably pressing a little bit, you know, and because he wants to do the right thing. But when I watch what he's doing defensively, he's not, like I mentioned Kyle about it, he's not in the stance he needs to be in. He's not on edge the way he needs to be, and he knows it. Like, he had a talk with Coach Schwartz the other day, and he said, you know, he let his mind start thinking that because we're scoring that he had to do that too, and each player just has to be who they are and play the role they have to play, and they struggle within that role sometimes. They do, but his has nothing to do with anything other than, if anything, he's got himself locked up because he's trying so hard to a fault. And you can't play like that. You've got to be able to relax play, and you can't be afraid of mistakes. You can't play trying to be perfect, because it's not a game of perfect. But that's, if there's a fault, it's him, because he doesn't want to let anybody down. And that, I mean, he truly, it's about him not wanting to let his teammates down. And when he feels he is, he really does take it personal, which is a good thing, obviously. But the fact is, he'll come back. He'll be fine, because I mean, this is a guy that's played 30 minutes in a game at some earlier back, and he'll do it. But Lamonte's starting. Probably if Lamonte wasn't hurt, he probably would have been in the starting lineup when we made the move to bring Jordan Bowden off the bench. But he was hurt, and the next guy that at that point in time that was in the lineup coming in was Eve. And I thought Eve handled starting well, and I think, you know, prior to that he handled coming off the bench well. And like I've said before, we've got 7 starters or 8, whatever you want to say, but Eve will get it back, and you just can't work as hard as he works and not get it back.
Coach, back here, when you look at the last 2 games, South Carolina and A&M, part of the narrative was, you know, you allow the opponent to get back within 2 points midway through the second half, but then you stretch it out and win by double digits. What is it about this team that allows or enables you to stretch it out and just put them away like that? Well,
one, we don't allow them to get back within 2. They get back within 2 because they work hard, and I go back, and again, the respect that you have for Billy Kennedy and, you know, Frank Martin and Conzo Martin and everybody we play against. They're good. We got terrific coaches in this league, and they're not going to let their teams roll over and die. They're not. And when you make a run like we did in some of those games, you fully expect the other team to make another run. Now, what you do with your team, you sit down with them afterwards and you say, hey, why did they make that run? And sometimes you might run good offense and just miss shots, but other times you might take bad shots. And like a play Saturday, Lamonte took a really tough 3 that barely hit the front of the rim. Then I think they came down and he got called for an intentional foul. That could have been a potential 5-point swing. And that's how quickly momentum can swing. But the fact is, you go into every game expecting it to be a close game. And our guys, I don't care what the scoring margin is. I think they realize, and they have found out, that all you got to do is read the papers, you know, before you go in. Texas A&M, their school paper, they're talking about it. Their players talking about it, a great opportunity to do something, and so they're going to get great shots from people where we are right now. But it should make us better, because we should know that there's no letdown. Because if you do, I mean, over the last couple of weeks, we've been in some really good basketball games and good arenas, and but the fact is, at the end, we've been able to play, and our defense has been good at the end of games. That's helped us as much as any. But I think when teams come back, again, from a coaching standpoint, yeah, we look at how do we let that lead get away. But when sometimes it's just the fact the other team does it. They start making shots. I mean, A&M had averaged making 6 threes. Going into that game, they made 12 the other day, and their point guard, Starks, had done a great job of getting the ball to the basket. He had 8 assists where he hadn't been doing that. He had been shooting the ball more, keeping the ball more. But the other day, he was spraying it around and making terrific passes, and some of them we got back to the contest, some of them we couldn't. But oftentimes it's as simple as you've got to give the other team. And when another team gets down, like it happens, they're not making shots. They say, okay, we're going to put our head down and just start driving, which is really hard to do. And now, you know, guys start getting in foul trouble. You got to get to your bench a little bit to try to keep guys out of foul trouble. So within the game, there's different things that can come on that happen. And then if your bench isn't playing as well as they need to be playing, that leads to guys playing more minutes than you want them to, and they're probably not able to play at the highest level as long as you'd like for them to. So that's why, as a team collectively, everybody has a job to do. So hopefully you can ward off some of those runs and certainly have enough at the end of the game to win those games.
Rick, with the pace that y'all want to play and usually do end up playing at during games, does there come a point in the season where you have to think about giving bench guys more minutes, because even if there's a drop-off in play, it's a long season, or do we make too much of that?
Yeah, no, we think about that at the start of the season. You know, all that goes into play because you want your guys to do it, but what happens this time of year, though, we're not practicing as much as we did in terms of volume early in the year. So the amount of work they were doing back earlier and playing is more than right now, even though the games obviously are going to be more taxing. But yeah, we want our guys, and we are conscious of the minutes. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you it wasn't, because that's what we talked to our team about yesterday. We need those guys to give us, I don't care if it's 90 seconds, 60 seconds, 120 seconds. Just we need those. We need that from our bench, and we need them to go in and just, like I said, bring the energy and do the job that we expect them to do.
Coach, Missouri coming in, you're starting to see teams for the second time now in conference play. How does that, just change how you go about your business?
Well, again, it's like a round robin. When you're in a conference where you play teams twice, and there's adjustments, there's familiarity with it, and you expect them to make some adjustments, and they expect us to make some adjustments, and just the fact that both teams know each other, and that's happening this week with Missouri and Florida, but it is different when you play the same, when you're playing a round robin. It really is different. Our conference is different in the fact that we do that with two other teams outside of our common opponents, but it's more like a regular conference would be played.
Saturday night, you described the closing couple weeks of the schedule as brutal. How much do you think that'll get you ready for postseason?
Well, you know what? I think we all have brutal schedules. You look at it. I mean, I think this was a tough week for us. I think it's a tough week for everybody because we're all trying to continue to play. But you hope everything you do is preparing you for something somewhere down the line. But schedules are tough, and again, I think we all look at it. We all did. I haven't looked down the line to see it. I don't want to look at it. I just want to think about what we got to do tomorrow. But this is a time of year where separation obviously starts happening. We all know that, and there's a lot of basketball left to play. And I think that we all could look down the barrel at what could be long weeks for us because there's no giving for any of us. I don't care where we are or what we've done up to this point. If you're not trying to improve and get better, it'll jump up and grab you real quick.
Rick, is Missouri a better team now than it was the first time you played?
Well, just watching what I have, again, I think they're tough, hard-nosed team, and Tillman really has played. What I've seen of him lately, he's played really well. And he's a force. I mean, he's a talented young man, and I like the energy they play with, and they've been right there. Obviously, like so many of us, we could all say the what ifs, but they're there, and they're gonna fight. They're gonna scrap. They're gonna keep doing what they're doing. And like I said, I think they're a very efficient three-point shooting team, and when he gets going, it makes it really opens it up because you've got to give him attention. And I think what I'm saying to you, I think people would say that about us, the same thing. So there's not a lot of secrets with what we're all doing, but we're going to have to be ready because they're going to come ready to play.